The fire burning red in a Georgia representing of a comes hard here. Big up Kidaki, Buxton massive. Hey Babylon boy, you go on like you like come son. Red.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. I know what you conniving, money, money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. You can keep your conniving, money. When you've been up for a bum, you have been every morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, you have been every morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guild a piece. A 2 pound note and a guild a piece. A 2 pound note and a guild a piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in the Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Comes TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruption over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting aisle money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see. Sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, with Jah as ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say, Guyanese Morning Time. The people people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, they got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop. David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London. Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Port People Governor. Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson. Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Hey fans, it's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday at Clock Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Clock Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
Comes out your son. You burn the swine when I want you shine. The tree of life, them I want you climb, cause them out no kind. Comes, I say them out no kind. Buxton Massive, Kidaki, Red Hat.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, are you morning? Wait, the morning, are you morning? Morning, neighbor, morning. Listen. One of them early morning. Early morning idiots try to jump the gun. It's not the calling thing yet. I know you're listening. I ain't gonna call your number so nobody gonna harass you. But it ends in 6-8. So I know you're listening. What you could do is call me when the line's open. So I'm gonna tell you if I'm a toilet politician. Or I could give you appropriate answers. Morning, I am man. You know what I do? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. It is now 7 hours 39 on the 10th day of September in the year 2024. How you been? How was your yesterday? Have you seen anything that gives you hope? I've seen a lot of things that would make me feel hopeless in this country, but I believe in hope. I am a positivist. I always try to see the positive in things. So I'm always hopeful. But that doesn't stop me from my sacred duty of highlighting what's wrong with our society and what's wrong with the people in our society and encouraging change. A lot of people seem to believe that it is okay to accept things as they are. And as long as they're prepared to accept things as they are, we're not going to get the changes that are necessary for the growth and development of our society. Some people believe that it's okay for the likes of Anil Nandlal and Irfan Ali and the rest of the PPP, Tifin and corrupt cabal to do as they like with the resources of the people, use the resources of the people to further oppress the people. And the people must roll over and accept all of the oppressiveness, all of the oppression, and say nothing. It cannot be acceptable. I will not accept it. And I am encouraging citizens every single day, do not accept it. But Marty made it popular in the song, give them an inch, they take a yard. Give them a yard, they take a mile. The more unacceptable behavior you accept from people, the more they will poke their fingers in your eyes. Sometimes you don't bad up because you're a bad-minded person or you're a bad character person. Sometimes you bad up so people understand that you're not prepared to take their foolishness anymore. Let me give you an analogy. The Bible says, parents provoke not your children to anger, blah, 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 blah. Children honor thy parents that thy days may be longer. It gives two instructions in a family. Parents, respect your children as individuals. Respect them as humans. Respect them as God's creation. Don't provoke them to anger. Don't push them to anger. And at the same time, it says, parents honor your children honor your parents. Many of us use the part that says, children, honor your parents, that your days will be longer. And by that we are saying it is okay for parents to be abusive to children, because children are not human beings. Children don't have rights. Children don't have emotions. Children are bricks and sticks, so you can pelt them around, you can kick them around, you can slap them around, you can abuse them. And they're not expected to act up in any way. They're not expected to push back in any way. But physics tells me that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The force with which you pelt a ball to the wall is the force that it is going to be returned to you with. The way you treat your children for the greater part is the way they will react to you. The energies you give them is the energies they will give you. But when parents mistreat their children, and their children react, then everybody in the family says the children are disrespectful because it's the parents. Parents don't wrong. Very few of us going to say, but we'll ask the question, but what did the parent do to cause the child to react like that? That's the question. What did the parent do to cause a child to react like that? Until we do that kind of investigation or interrogation, whichever you want to call it, we will not understand the context of the behavior of the child. All we will do is see, as people say, you see second bell, you hear second bell, you didn't hear first bell. So you see a rebellious child. You didn't see the conditions that led to the rebellious child. Or you chose to turn a blind eye to those conditions. That is what is happening in this society. Let's transfer that same analogy to governance. Democracy says it's government by the people for the people. It means, and there's some tenets of democracy that say the people must be consulted, for example. There are tenets that say justice delayed is justice denied. There are tenets that say if your government is not working for you, put them out of office. But nobody sees that, or nobody wants to accept that, especially when they're in government. They only see the aspect that says government is responsible for law and order. In an ordered society, the laws are there to maintain law and order. If the laws are not adhered to, then you will get anarchy. You'll get a lawless society. And so everybody holds that as the standard. Citizens must obey the law at all times. Citizens must obey the law at all times. But that is not what my learning of what democratic practices are. Citizens must have freedom of speech. Citizens must have a right to complain. There must be institutions in place to ensure citizens' rights are not eroded. But the politicians, the powers that be, those who sit at the seat of power, do not see that. They only see that you must obey the laws. You must do as they say and not as they do. And I want to say this morning. From where I sit, I have a sacred duty. You have a sacred duty. We all have a sacred duty. To resist any government that is oppressive to you, oppressive to us, oppressive to this society. It's a sacred duty. It's a democratic tenet. We should stand on that pillar of democracy, the right of citizens to resist undemocratic behavior of their governments. Yesterday, somebody said the Protestants must have leadership, or you're going to end up with anarchy. And my response was, and still is, maybe anarchy suits the cause. Maybe anarchy suits the cause. And for those who are concerned or will be concerned that I am saying on this program this morning, like I said yesterday, maybe anarchy suits the cause. Anarchy, definition: a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority or other controlling systems. A state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority or other controlling systems. Isn't Guyana a society that is teetering on the edge of anarchy? Show me the order in this society. Show me the order. Show me the good behavior of those that sit in power. The behavior the likes of the PPP lead force people to not recognize authority. Let me break it down for you. When you have a society where the police force is controlled by political instructions and edicts, why should citizens respect and follow the instructions, even the demands, the commands of functionaries of that police force? I just went for a stroll around the block, and as I am coming down the public road, I saw a red SUV. A red SUV. The traffic was starting to build up. Vehicles in line making their way to the city. Ghana is a left-hand drive road, so everybody's on the left. Getting to the city, what we call what? The Southern Carriageway. The Northern Carriageway is left open usually for vehicles coming from the city heading east. And when the opportunity presents itself, those who are heading west to overtake. Here is a red SUV. Police horns, as we say, blaring. Flying down the Northern Carriageway. Now, I don't know how many of you have paid attention to what has been happening in this society since 2020. Every Tom, Dick, Harry, John, and Jane related to the friends, favorite, and families of the PPP now has a police horn and flashing red and blue lights on their vehicle. And so when the traffic becomes congested and they feel like they don't want to wait, which is almost all the time, they turn on their lights and they blare their horns and they force others who are suffering in the fumes and fuming in the long lines of traffic to pull off of the road so that they can have their way. Now, when you recognize that is what is happening in a society, should you ordinarily pay attention to and respect those blaring horns and flashing lights when you see them. Especially when they are on vehicles that are not ordinarily identified as vehicles of the discipline services, disciplinary and emergency services. Let me put it together. So when I see a Primo or a 192 or a Fielder flashing coming through and honking horns, should I even consider moving my vehicle from where it is to allow them passage? The friends, favorite, and families of the PPP will tell me yes. I will tell you, citizens have a sacred duty to stand their ground until the authorities can do the just and correct thing, and that is ensure only emergency and discipline services vehicles are so outfitted. Yeah, I'm expecting you to tell me ministers of government's vehicles should be outfitted too. No, I don't know the law provides for that. I know that ministers of government or operatives of the government, let me make it wide, unofficial duties should be escorted by a police outrider. And so if they should be escorted by police outriders, then there is no need, as far as I know, there is no provision for their vehicles to bear those paraphernalia, if I can call them that. Perhaps Barbara, I don't have time for ignorant people, especially when they are hiding behind avatars, because that is exactly what they are, avatars. Good riddance. Go back into your car now and stay under your dirty mud. Citizens have a sacred duty to resist that form of oppression, that form of discrimination. And I have no apologies for saying it. And it becomes anarchy or anarchic when citizens stand their grounds and refuse to move their vehicles because every Tom, Dick, Harry, and John got a siren on theirs. When it becomes a problem big enough for the police, big enough for the authorities, big enough for the politicians, they will do the right thing. Anarchy sometimes is the answer for the kind of chaos that governments like the PPP create. I have no apologies for saying that. When you have an attorney general, the government legal officer, or the top government legal officer, hinting to the citizenry, and hey, in a few mornings from now, we are going to be passing laws that will take away your freedoms of expression. Citizens have a sacred duty to prepare themselves to resist that form of oppression. If somebody makes a post on social media and doesn't call somebody's name but gives description that may suggest it's a particular person, then that person has the right of complaint, and the authorities have a right to investigate and punish. And anybody who shares that post is just as liable as the person who made that post. When you hear of such, I don't know, barbaric nonsense being proposed to curtail your freedom, you have a right to resist. And so every citizen has a right to disregard any such amendment in the Cybercrime Act and continue to speak their truth. Every citizen has a right to resist. And that in itself will lead to an anarchic situation. And maybe force the criminals that be to revisit their amendments. As a matter of fact, like I said, that resistance ought to have started since yesterday, or since the first utterances coming out of the mouth of that person. And if you think that I am being emotional about these utterances, and I don't know what I'm talking about, I want to point you to Rick Ford Burke's page, where he has an article that says that top US government officials are alleging that Guyana's top legal officer, the government's top legal officer, is misrepresenting the UN's draft on cybercrime, is misrepresenting it. Because I want you to go back to the pronouncements that were made locally. I shared those articles with you, I think last week. Yeah, definitely last week, Friday perhaps. Where it was said that the Law Reform Commission can complete the amendments by October, when Parliament is scheduled to meet again, for the mere fact that members of the Law Reform Commission were participants at a conference of some sort held by the UN to address these issues. And so they're prepared, they're fresh in their minds, and they can get the job completed. But here it is. Top US or UN officials are saying a total misrepresentation of what was proposed and is proposed by the UN. Why citizens should adhere to any edicts of an institution led by such a person who is happy to misrepresent in order to oppress the citizens of the country. Resistance is a sacred duty. And I have no apologies to that. I was told by one of our erstwhile friends, Mr. Amsterdam, saying anarchy might be the answer on your platform, might be putting a bullet, my word, in the chambers of the PPP, because they can go to Parliament and argue that such sentiments have made it necessary for them to do just what they're proposing to do. Well, here, old people say, when go chitwa roll, you wait for breeze. And I say, when people make up their mind, there is absolutely nothing you can do to change what their opinions are. And so the PPP already decided. The top legal officer already decided that they will go to the National Assembly with a slim majority and they will make amendments to the Cybercrime Act that will punish citizens for exercising their freedom of speech. And so to use my utterances as an excuse, they are welcome to. But the fact is the fact. My utterances are a direct response to their proposals. Let me share with you. I'm not going to get the time to go through every aspect. As a matter of fact, I'm being educated here. My language is too wide. When I spoke about sirens and lights and other such paraphernalia on vehicles, it says only emergency vehicles, fire, ambulance, and police. And so the law does not, note, the law does not make provision for even the vehicles used and operated by the Guyana Defense Force or the Guyana Prison Service to have sirens and lights. Police, fire, and ambulance. So when you see all kind of Tom, Dick, Harry, John, James, red SUV, 192 security vehicle, all of them are running around this place, flying around this place with those, so on. You have a sacred vehicle, a sacred duty to stand your ground. If you see police, if you see ambulance, if you see fire service, then you also have a responsibility to get out the way. Yeah, they're going to come to you. One of them came to me one time and said, like, you're an ass. Why don't move the F vehicle off the road? I got aware that I just developed speech impediment. It has become deaf, mute, and all kind of things. So you can imagine me just looking at that person and wondering if they know what I'm thinking. Right? Anarchy sometimes is necessary to respond to excesses in a society. Like somebody said, it might be nature's way of reordering the society. I was about to share with you, and I'm encouraging you to ensure you go get a read of what the Draft United Nations Convention Against Cybercrime says. It's a big document. I think it's 41 pages. Right? According to this, it was released or compiled on the 7th of August, 2024. Under the theme Strengthening International Cooperation for Combating Certain Crimes Committed by Means of Information and Communications Technology Systems and for the Sharing of Evidence in Electronic Form of Serious Crimes. Right? Let me read the preamble. I will read the preamble and stop there. The states parties to the present convention, bearing in mind the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, agreed at referendum, noting that information and communication technologies, while having enormous potential for the development of societies, create new opportunities for perpetrators, may contribute to the increase in the rate and diversity of criminal activities, and may have an adverse impact on states, enterprises, and the well-being of individuals and society as a whole. concerned that the use of information and communication technology systems can have a considerable impact on the scale, speed, and scope of criminal offenses, including offenses related to terrorism and transnational organized crime, such as trafficking in persons, smuggling of migrants, illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms, their parts, components, and ammunition, drug trafficking, and trafficking in cultural property. Convinced of the need to pursue as a matter of priority a global criminal justice policy aimed at the protection of society against cybercrime by, inter alia, adopting appropriate legislation, establishing common offenses and procedural powers, and fostering international cooperation to prevent and combat such activities more effectively at the national, regional, and international levels. Determined to deny safe havens to those who engage in cybercrime by prosecuting these crimes wherever they occur. Stressing the need to enhance coordination and cooperation among states by, inter alia, providing technical assistance and capacity building, including transfer of technology on mutually agreed terms to countries, in particular developing countries, upon their request, to improve national legislation and frameworks and enhance the capacity of national authorities to deal with cybercrime in all its forms, including its prevention, detection, investigation, and prosecution, and emphasizing in this context the role that the United Nations plays. Recognizing the increasing number of victims of cybercrime, the importance of obtaining justice for those victims, and the necessity to address the needs of persons in vulnerable situations in measures taken to prevent and combat the offenses covered by this convention. Determined to prevent, detect, and suppress more effectively international transfer of property obtained as a result of cybercrime, and to strengthen international cooperation in the recovery and return of proceeds of the crimes established in accordance with this convention. Bearing in mind that preventing and combating cybercrime is a responsibility of all states, and that they must cooperate with one another, with the support and involvement of relevant international and regional organizations, as well as non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and private sector entities, if their efforts in this area are to be effective. Recognizing the importance of mainstreaming a gender perspective in all relevant efforts to prevent and combat the offenses covered by this convention in accordance with domestic law. Mindful of the need to achieve law enforcement objective and to ensure respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms as enshrined in applicable international and regional instruments. Acknowledging the right to protection against arbitrary or unlawful interference with one's privacy and the importance of protecting personal data. That's the preamble. General provisions. The purpose of this convention are to promote and strengthen measures to prevent and combat cybercrimes more efficiently and effectively. Promote, facilitate, and strengthen international cooperation in preventing and combating cybercrime, and promote, facilitate, and support technical assistance and capacity building to prevent and combat cybercrime, in particular for the benefit of developing countries. For the purpose of this convention, information and communications technology systems shall mean device or group of interconnected or related devices. Electronic data shall mean any representation of facts, information, or concepts in a form suitable for processing in an information and communication technology system, including a program suitable to cause an information and communication technology system to perform a function. Traffic data, content data, service provider, these are some definitions. Good. But I want you to, at a glimpse, I want you to at a glimpse there. Determine in your minds, and like I said, take the time and find the convention and read it. Find the convention and read it. Because as far as I can understand from reading the preamble and those few first clauses, where your top legal government officer is heading is certainly not where the convention intends to him or them to head. Because right there in the preamble it says, recognizing the importance, can't remember the exact thing, but let me go right back to it so you can get it. Acknowledging the right to protection against arbitrary or unlawful interference with one's privacy. Mindful of the need to achieve law enforcement objectives and ensure respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms as enshrined in applicable international and regional instruments. Is your freedom of speech considered a fundamental right? And if so, and your country's top legal officer is proposing to infringe on that freedom of speech, what is your duty? You have a sacred duty to resist. And if anarchy is a result of that resistance, then so be it. Then so be it. But your sacred duty, our sacred duty, is to resist such oppression, such impositions. And I have no apologies to make for that. The lines are opened. It's 8:15. The one who was wondering if I'm a toilet politician can call now so I can appropriately respond. 6225933 is the line to call, is the number to call. Call you live.
Hello, good morning, Dr. Lake. Good morning to the rest of Guyana. Well, as it relates to that side of the proposed legislation, I already give my position on that. No nation around the world tries on the suppression of, or let me say this, suppression of freedom of expression. Any nation embark on such activity, they do tend to be alienated by the international community. And Guyana will be no different. Again, every day, did you see what's going on in Venezuela? The same thing in Russia and North Korea and all these other countries. And so it is only time for you to see economic and other sanctions coming together if that legislation is passed. The United States in particular do not condone such acts. I think it is in the Freedom of Expression Act, I think the Fourth Amendment privilege, or something like that. It gives you the freedom of expression where you can freely, I mean, you're not going to say things that are harmful against the state, but it gives you the right to freely express yourself and express yourself and so on. I want to add a new thing to the discussion this morning, in that it seems to be a new thing in crime in Guyana, particularly in the city, where there are a lot of drive-by. And I want to caution, first, that when you're moving around in the evening or during the day, you got to be cautious of movement, because I think it was up to the night before the last 2 nights ago, there's been drive-by shooting in the city. And we have to take caution of our movements and be very careful. Okay then, thank you very much for allowing me.
Thank you for your call. Elijah Main Home 6225933 is the number to call. Let me tell you that Club Twilight presents Friday Laughs with Chow Pow and Jumbie Jones. Friday, September 27th, the doors open at 7 p.m. Admission is easy on the pocket. Only $500, and then there's open mic for the brave. So you're not only going to be entertained by Chow Pow and Jumbie Jones, but you also will get the opportunity to take to the stage and share your laughs. It's like a comedy karaoke, a karaoke of comedies Why don't I call you that? Call it live.
Yes, good morning to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning to you and all my African brothers and sisters in Guyana. Let me start by saying these words. We black people in Guyana, we have to love ourselves and love our money. And then we will see change in Guyana. Number two, it is time for us to stop focus on what other countries doing. They represent their constitution by protesting and stop the ignorantness in their country. We have to do the same. We have to come out together. When we fight together, we will win together and stop the rubbish that the Kodi people government is doing. That's why I would always call them by the identity Kodi. No one can stop me. I know what I'm saying. And let me say this, what my grandmother teach me. She said, Kodi people love these things. Power, money, land, and they love to kill black man. And they will always talk it on your program until you stop me. Because I have to represent your program, not my program. It's your program. You see, when Anil come out with that rubbish, but what he going to do? Where are the lawyers them to come out? All the lawyers them. They got about 50,000 lawyers. Where are them to come out? And encourage folks to come out and join them to say, this nonsense must stop. Like you said, Barbados, right. But if it's seriously, come out and say, hey, this nonsense that will stop. What's wrong with you guys? We paying you your check. We are the working people. You only representing us. But we are the same. You know what? What I could figure out. The lawyers, they're glad when this law comes out. Why? Because they're going to make money from poor people. Because the Kodi people them go target only black folks with money, especially poor people too, who don't have, but they will have to find money to take a lawyer. When the coalition around the time start that nonsense with that law, I could remember Mark. Mark said, either he called or he talked to Ramdatan. Mark could call me back and verify that the guy does do it. That he begged Ramdatan not to do it. And Ramdatan go ahead, coalition, AFC Ramdatan. Brother Pastor Landon, he said on Mr. David program too, he said part of that law that if any citizen wants the president too strong, he could get them arrested and jail. What happened to all these lawyers then? Them ain't see the same thing what Mr. Mark see and Mr. Daniel, or them willfully left it to go to get rich after the same. No, we crying out. The Kodi man have stand up in Parliament. Give me 2 more minutes. These are the words in Parliament. What are you doing for our people? The most ridiculous, stupid statement coming out from them Kodi management and MP. No country, no government not supposed to do that word, but wait for our people. No. That's why we have always mention Bonham. And it's time for that people stop taking nonsense from them Kodi government. Because Bonham was a master for all. He opened the door for all, not for black man alone. Desmond Prasad even gives Kodi more than black man. Check history. Granger Prasad do for more for them. Because everything that you call done, David Granger always said yes to. And last night, I was so mad when Granger talking this garbage pan Mark show that he rigging and all these things coming out. You see all this nonsense. When you give up office, Mark must start bringing Granger to open wounds. It is too close to election. Don't let going to come and talk them rubbish and get people to run away from voting time. Granger hurt us. He hurt us terrible, but we forgive him. But don't bring him back on the program to talk about all this rigging. Why the hell you give up office? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your call. Lines remain open 6225923 is the number to call. I have clarification. I think yesterday, Coffee was asking about the Bureau of Standards. In one fell swoop, I think he is saying, listen, the Bureau of Standards is responsible for all of these things. Let me just say that the Bureau of Standards, as I know it, the Bureau of Standards is responsible for some of the things he mentions, like imports and so on. There are different departments of government that are responsible for different things. For example, the Food and Drug Analyst Department, as far as I know, is responsible for people who are importing food and drugs, like it says, and even manufacturing food and drugs locally. Of course, my belief is that they will have to work in conjunction with the Bureau of Standards on that. Public utilities, like water, telephone, maybe public washrooms. There's a Public Utilities Commission that is responsible for that. I think the Public Utilities Commission is located somewhere in Queenstown. I've had reason to go there on several occasions in the past to complain. They're slow, but sometimes they just get something done. Not usually to your satisfaction, but they get something done. So there's a PUC, which is responsible for public utilities. Bureau of Standards, like I said, responsible for stuff like hardware and stuff like that, usually imported electronics and things like that. Food and Drug Analyst has to do with exactly that. The Ombudsman is a point of complaint. You can go and complain to the Ombudsman, but I think that, and it has to do with government behavior. Government behavior. I can't tell you exactly all of the different agencies but my point is there's no singular agency that you can turn to address the issues. There's no singular agency that you can turn to address the issues. Call it life.
Yes, good morning. I hope you would give me a hearing to express my views also.
So long as it's done respectfully.
Yeah, I never disrespect you when I call this program.
Proceed.
I find that you said always attacking you, right? On your program, I don't find nobody except me who disagrees with you. And that's not good for you. You know? You should have dissenting views from people. Not everybody agreeing with whatever you say. Hello?
We are listening.
Yeah. So that's my point. Another thing, you're talking about democracy, right? In your small way here, whenever I call, you cut me off. You know, you're facilitating the government in doing what they want to do because you're denying me. This is a public forum.
How much of this program you listened this morning? How much of this program you listened to this morning?
I was listening when you were speaking this morning.
Did you hear me say, parents, provoke not your children to anger, and children honor your parents?
Yeah, yes.
Do you understand anything that I was explaining there? This is a program. Let me explain this to you. This is a public program facilitated by me. This is my platform. You have here, let me finish the man. You are getting the opportunity. Note, it's an opportunity to express your sentiments on public issues facilitated by me. And if I find that you're disrespectful, I have the right to disconnect you. I don't owe you anything, sir.
I know, but what
Proceed.
sort of disrespect? I'm not agreeing with your views. That is disrespect.
But no. For example, when you called me this morning, how did you start your presentation?
Because you were harping, there's so many other issues.
You need to learn communication. I will take a few minutes and teach you. And I said it last week. Even if you have to chastise somebody, you start, or it is advisable to start with the positives. You called me as soon as I answered the phone. You are one of them toilet politicians.
No, because I know you're going to cut me off. That's why I try to be brief.
Carter, be brief with your dissent. We're listening. You got a few minutes more.
Yeah, I was saying, I spoke to you concerning your program. This program is going about 4 years now, right? And every year I ask you, what are your achievements? It's a rowing session every year, go year come. You're not achieving, anything. It's people only rowing between one another, year to year come. Nothing is coming out of this. You have to change your strategy, sir.
Caller, what do you recommend as a strategy?
You must allow people to rapport with you so that you can bring out, you should use me now as an agent to enhance your platform.
Caller,
instead, you shut me down.
Caller, I gave you so far approaching 5 minutes to make to rapport with me. If you come here every morning for 4 years, I'm assuming you come here every morning for 4 years to listen to a program. You see, you're not a good listener. You're not a good listener. That's why you can't learn, and that's why I just cut you off.
All right, I'm listening.
If for 4 years every morning you come here to listen to a program that is achieving nothing, I dare say you have a lot of time to waste. Please use your time productively. Unless there's something else you wish to say, you may take your leave.
All right, I can take the leave, man. You shut me out again.
I shut you. I gave you an option. I'm sure you ain't got nothing else to say. Call your life. Yes, sir.
Why you believe I tell a lot of people this country is not a real place? I wanted the color. I mean, I get a personal. I would never get personal. I need a person to have a family that could share fair and square conversation and a discussion and a decision. Now you're not a dictator. You don't dictate what you would have to say. You a man call you program the day and I put you in another problem. You didn't say anything against nobody, for killing nobody or nothing. When what happened? You end up in front of the way. Who went in the lock up? Why did you go in the lock up? Because your voice has been heard. And it started people, but you know what happened? We have a small mindset. Come on, listen to me carefully, my brother. I'm Guyanese. I listened to the last night. I listened to the couple last week where the little guy got shot in the foot. When the man father called him, I said, program attack, what happened? I took that key. Keys come to my eyes last night, and then I put the bench cup, program with the rest of the guy from board, which we saw much shooter. The man should have the idiot of the guy foot. Keys come to my leg, like if you're looking at me son or me family, what the case may be. No, you know what the man said last night? I'm Mr. David show. Well, like people having an argument over this disagreement, what's going to say is democracy. But that's because having a conversation over somebody disagree, that says ignorance. No, I want to call it, so I'm not discarding him. I want you to understand. If we cannot have a fair discussion, and see the way forward. These are times in our lives. We understand that we play no part of this system being smart. Now listen to this carefully. I listen to Nigeria Youth press conference. The man said, this is 1992. So no, it's 32 years since the government acknowledged the PNC government change. Out of the 32, PNC rules for 27 out of 22. And even if you put 5 years after the power, don't have the power 3.5 years because 3 years because they look at the motion. Then put them in power for 3 years or 3.5 years. Now you look at the percentage of things that happen within 2 years. The man said 85 to 88% they were in power out of the 2 years. How much of this person who can, but the guy look at just now, sit down and analyze minus 5 from 22. See how much years you get, and you use your own judgment and ask yourself questions. Who was in power for majority of them years? Who do the foolishness with them years? I say PNC, you know, some 6 to 1492. You represent nobody. But if you want to blame PNC what they do, that blame could be Peter. Because PPP were them over similar to 32 years. And they're doing worse and 100 times worse than what PNC do. And next thing, I'm telling Guyanese, what that is right now, so they don't go on the street. You see who wanted right now? 3 men, till the age, 31. Here the youngest one, 18. Another one who will be 80, talking about the kids or 20 something years. What's the age? Who are these people? It's we African people again. People them using we, there's vex when you call them house slave. There's vex when you use the word house slave because I like when the guy program from Grenada with Komi and Mr. Paslow and Inequitable. You hear all these people calling in and disrespecting oneself. I call him, but Mr. Gadaki is a sad state. I just scaled it out in different areas. We can't talk about because we better the short time to talk. Mr. Gadaki is a sad. You hear what they call it telling you. You contribute to nothing, you make it no sense. You know how much people listen to your program? If you can listen to this, if you can listen to my come let's to them after they listen to it. Because I want to know what's going on around me. He telling you teaching them nothing. They mean he's a dunce. If they teach them nothing, they're going to charge, they're going to put on you or the people. Your words, the program, have to penetrate the mindset. And they ain't like that. They ain't like that. Because the people getting away of what's going on around. But they can't tell a man, you know, you're a man, that's a man. You're a man, that's a man. You're seeing it now. Last you say, you're a man, type of man. You're a man, type of man. Now you're seeing everything live. And because your program edifying Guyanese and people becoming civilized, they are alive.
Thank you, God.
Yes, have a best day.
Let me tell you all something. I'm happy that the viewers themselves are responding to the person who believes that for 4 years we have achieved nothing. I always say, and I will repeat it, tree nigga fruit, little wine a pelton. It will be an asinine government, a group of stupid people. I mean, we got a whole lot of them in the PPP. But all of them is stupid, I guarantee you though. It got to be a whole group of stupid people that will take the precious time and resources, including the Guyana police force, to always be on my case because I'm achieving nothing with this platform. I tell you all a story. It is alleged. Let me say it is alleged. I mean, I didn't get it. They said in a moment by him. that when I started doing this, hello, hi, good morning. Oh gosh, y'all look so good this morning. Good morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is 7 hours 24 on the 11th day of September in the year 2024. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. How you been? Morning, neighbor, morning. How are you do? How are you been? How was I yesterday, last night, this morning? How I make out? I understand it was raining cats and dogs, animals in Borbis last evening. And this morning it's raining cats and dogs, animals in Georgetown. We on the East Coast here, maybe we're favored for the heat. Yes. Anyways, I hope you're keeping well. I hope you are taking precautionary measures. You are remembering that there's an advisory of what I would call exceptional heat during this period. Ensure that you and your children and your family members and your friends walk around with enough water. I was about to say liquids to keep yourself hydrated. Hydration is important. Please ensure you remain hydrated in this time. Take all precautionary measures. I mean, yes, water is life, they say in Ghana. Conserve it. In this instance, I don't want you to conserve water. I want you to use it as much as is possible. Um, your water bill might go up in terms of the amount of water, bottled water you have to buy. But if you can afford it, and I know it might be a challenge for some people, but if you can afford it, please don't skimp on your money. Drink water because the money you'll spend on water, I am sure, is way less than you're going to have to spend for medical attention if you were to suffer heat stroke or any other such complaints as a result of dehydration. Please do. Good. For those administrators of schools, the ministry and the departments of education and so on, please ensure that there is adequate water supply in the schools for both staff and learners. It's the least you can do. And like I suggested earlier, you all need to put cooling systems in the school so that the heat is not going to be overbearing and overwhelming for the occupants of those box ovens which we have as schools. It is Wednesday morning. It is now 7 hours 27. And on Wednesdays, we usually have Dr. Hines on the show. Last week, he was not able to be here for whatever reasons, but definitely is in the show this morning. And so, Dr. Hines, welcome to Guyanese Morning Time. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm fine. Thanks.
I'm happy that you're fine. How is the heat at your end? Is it well? Yeah, you live in a place where it's never cold.
Well, where I am now, it's the desert, and it's the heat is normative here.
Normative, good. Normative. That's not bad at all. Of course, you heard of that what I call extended forecast for extraordinary heat in this part of the world, the Caribbean, including Ghana.
Yes, I've been following it.
Good. So what's going on since back then, man, is well, but 2 weeks now since we met on the program and we talked about what's happening in the society and so on and so forth. What's going on? Anything you want to address before I get into my usual stuff?
No.
All right. Very well. So there's a lot that has happened over the period of time. We saw the release of the half-year report, and Guyana is in what $500 billion US debt or 500 million, some that big fancy figure, debt, right? And there are many of us who are asking why this country has to be in so much debt when it is at a place now where it is earning millions of US dollars per day from petroleum production. What are your thoughts on the half-year report?
Well, if you want me to talk about the debt, I can offer some insights there. Debt in itself is not such a bad thing.
I know it's difficult sometimes to wrap our minds around that. Countries are in debt all the time. Big countries, United States, they all borrow money. Because remember, you're borrowing money with the expectation of what you will earn. And given all the projections in terms of oil, it is estimated that we have a lot of money coming in. And so the government can afford to borrow against the money that is coming in. That is what it is doing, and that is what governments generally do. So on the face of it, the debt is not such a worrying thing, because we do have money coming in to cover the debt. The problem is, what are we doing with the money that we are borrowing? That's where the issue is, and not so much the debt. National debt is, like I said, a normal thing, especially for a country like ours that is expecting a lot of money to come in. So really the issue is not the national debt, is what are we doing with the money that we are borrowing?
Indeed, what are we doing with the money we are borrowing? Because I see, as many would say, a lot of this money is being spent on big ticket infrastructure. But every day someone is able to point out the failings of the infrastructure projects which are being undertaken by these projects. And so one is forced to ask about the sincerity, if I can call it that, with which these monies which are being borrowed are being quote unquote invested. Any concern there for the manner in which the money is being spent? I see some people say it's a way of the PPP transferring the nation's wealth to itself, or its family, friends, and cronies.
Well, of course, we've established that. We have established that the priority of the government is quote unquote infrastructure. And again, on the face of it, economically speaking, if a government spends a lot of money on infrastructure, and it is able to make the case that our infrastructure is so bad that it needs fixing. Now, you spend a lot of money on infrastructure for two things. I mean, for the benefit of your citizens, good roads, good bridges means that people are able to move from one place to another quicker than normal. If you have more roads, people are able to move quicker. With all the cars that we have on the road, there is a case that can be made for more roads. So under normal circumstances, one would not make a lot of noise if a government is refurbishing or expanding the infrastructure network in a country. Like I said, you do it for internal purposes, moving people from one place to the other quicker than normal, etc. Putting bridges across rivers cuts a lot of time, and so on and so forth. You also refurbish your infrastructure to attract investments. Investors coming into a country want good infrastructure. You want good roads, depending on what kind of industry that you are investing in. But any investor would like to see good roads, bridges, particularly good electricity supply, energy supply. So you refurbish and upgrade your infrastructure also to attract investment. And so those are the questions we have to ask. I mean, the government is spending close to 60% of its budget on infrastructural projects. And you have to ask, what is the objective of the government? What is the government refurbishing the infrastructure to do? And the government can argue, yes, we have a lot of cars on the road. We need to move people from one place to another quicker than normal. And that point is well taken. In terms of attracting investors, I'm not too sure. I believe that to the economists, because the question is this big infrastructural rampage, as I call it, on the part of the government, is it aimed at attracting new investors? I am not too sure of that. So the next question then is, why, how much you spend on infrastructure as distinct from what you spend on other aspects of the economy? I did mention the question of energy just now. When you look at the blackouts that we have and the historical problem we've had with electricity, one would think that should and would be an area of priority for any government, because clearly we are losing a lot of productive time because of blackout, one. Two, we are inconveniencing citizens. You can have all the best roads, and people have all the big cars and moving from one place to the other. But when you get home, if there's no electricity, then there's not very much you can do. So we are losing a lot of productive time. We are frustrating our own citizens. One would think that if you're talking about infrastructure, that's an area of infrastructure that we would have paid serious attention to. So what it's saying to me is that the government does not prioritize. The government does not have a coherent approach to infrastructure. The government is not sitting down and saying, let us see what are the needs of our people, and then fit your infrastructure plans for the needs of the people and the needs of, and by people I mean your citizens, your workers, and so on, and of course your private sector. You know, what are their needs? And I am hard pressed to look at the government heavy priority on infrastructure and to see it as part of some larger objective that the government has. And so in that sense, I am questioning, as most people are doing, why this infrastructure? Why all these bridges and roads, as opposed to fixing electricity, for example? And I did point out a couple of weeks ago that even when they're building the roads and the bridges and so on, you still see in particular areas, lot of backup in traffic. Over the last 3 or 4 months or so, it's been difficult on the East Coast corridor, for example, certain times in the afternoon. And you're talking about 4 lanes, 2 lanes going and 2 lanes coming in the afternoons, 2 lanes going eastwards. And then you have the railway embankment. So in a sense, what you have is a 3-lane highway in the afternoon, yet it's hell getting from Georgetown to the lower and central East Coast. So you're asking the question, are these roads answering the problems or fixing the problems that we have in terms of commuting? And one doesn't see very much evidence of that. Again, we are not opposed to infrastructure, but we are saying that you have to spend on infrastructure as much as you spend on other pressing areas of the political economy. That's one. Secondly, what are the outcomes you're looking for in this infrastructure? Are you looking to tackle the problem of commuter congestion? If so, we don't see any evidence that that is abating. Are you trying to bring in, to make it easier for foreign investors to come in? Well, maybe. So they're gonna come in and they're gonna get lots of roads and so on, but bad electricity. Why not take some of that money and invest it and fix the electricity problem? So there are questions as to what is the government's objective. And so it is at that point that we come to the conclusion that the government objective is spending for the sake of spending. And why you choose to spend on infrastructure in this manner, as opposed to spending on wages and salary or some of the other things to do with human development. And that is where we arrive at the answer that it's a way of funneling resources to particular segments of the society. And once you begin to go there, you will begin to fit the pieces together. You begin to look at the relationship between the government and the so-called private sector. Who dominates the private sector? And when you look at who dominates the private sector, the profile fits a certain kind of citizen that is likely to embrace the government, or certainly embrace the government thrust. And so one comes to the conclusion that the government is using this infrastructural onslaught, because that's what it is, as a means of distributing or maldistributing resources to citizens. In any case, one of the functions of government is to distribute resources, common resources. That's a normal function of government. And so nothing is wrong for government besides that, look, here are the priorities in the society, and then we're going to spend money on those priorities. And in the process of spending money, we are distributing money because people have to provide goods and services and labor and so forth. So again, on the surface of it, you may think nothing of it. But when you look at who is benefiting from these large projects and large part of the budget that is spent on these capital projects and these infrastructural projects, then you're beginning to see that the only intentional aspect of this spending on infrastructure is where the money is going. And the money is funneling through contractors, big contractors, and then contractors subcontract, and maybe subcontractors subcontract, and so on. So it's a means of distributing resources. And if those to whom the contracts are given represent one segment of the society, whether it's the rich and powerful, or whether it's the rich and powerful of a particular ethnic group, you are then funneling great amount of resources through these people. Now, one may argue, well, that's normal in society, but of course it's normal. It's normal for contractors to be given contracts. But the contracting system has to be democratic. It has to, if that's the means by which you are going to distribute resources, then you have to make sure that those means are democratic. That is, that the contractors represent the gamut of the demographics in the country. If that's the means you're using to funnel, you're not using wages. You're not putting plenty money in wages as a means of putting money in people's pocket. You are funneling the money through big mega contracts. Some of these contractors are non-Guyanese contractors. Some of these contractors are bringing in their own labor. When you take into consideration, for example, that we are importing, 462 drivers, and the company that is coming in is bringing its own truck drivers. When we have truck drivers in Guyana, all right, who could be getting those jobs, you are bringing in government has given the company permission to bring in its own drivers. The point I'm making here is that the government strategy is not one that is designed to, in an equitable and democratic way, to funnel resources down to the Guyanese people. In many regards, in some regards, the money is going out of the country. In this case, where we're hiring drivers, those money are going out of the country. I mean, the drivers may pay some minimal taxes here. I mean, if you bring in drivers from another country to come in to Guyana, the arrangement those drivers are going to make is that they pay as little taxes as possible. So a lot of those monies will be going back out of the country, right? Some of the trickle-down money will go to the favored demographics of the contractors. But we know, you know, the bulk of the money is being taken away by contractor. Contractor gets a contract for what? For $2 billion, and he takes off the bat $1 billion of those dollars, and then he subcontracts the next $1 billion. The next contractor take $500 million, and he subcontracts the next $500 million, and so on. And so in the end, by the time the money is coming down to the so-called workers or to the small contractors, a lot of it is gone already. So the economic thrust of infrastructure, right, has its economic outcomes, which I'm saying is not coherent, is not part of a larger economic vision. Where the outcomes are palpable is in the political outcomes, in the sense that the monies are going to favored people, contractors who are favored by the government, contractors who get into the favor of the government. And so it is those contractors that the vast money is going to. So if you're spending 60% on capital infrastructure program, then you left 40% to spend on other things. And you wake up one morning and all of a sudden we're reading the papers, we are in trouble, our children are not passing mathematics. And you know, they have to spend money in trying to patch that up. Because first of all, you did not have an educational vision. You did not plan. Nobody can tell me that when you were doing the budget last year, that you didn't expect that math passes was going to be bad as it did. It was 34% last year. And if you're doing the budget for this year and you're serious about education, you'll say, well, okay, we know it's 34%. And so we have to do an education budget that tackles that question of poor mathematics outcomes, poor English outcomes. We have to tackle literacy and so forth. So that because you diagnose the problem and you create a vision for the problem, then your budget reflects that. But here it is, clearly the government has no vision as far as education is concerned. As I said, 60% of the money gone to infrastructure. So you're scrambling around to put a little bit here for education, a little bit there for healthcare, a little bit there for agriculture, a little bit there for this, a little bit there for that. And so you are now coming towards the end of the fiscal year and you're discovering, oh boy, education is in trouble. Well, education was in trouble a long time. But because you didn't have a coherent vision for education as part of a larger vision for the country, you did not allocate the kind of resources to the particular places in the political economy, such as the education sector, such as spending on math, on upping our performance in mathematics, dealing with the question of school dropouts, dealing with the question of illiteracy, dealing with the question of teachers' compensation, and all of that. All of that is part of the large education, but there's no education vision because you've taken 2/3 of the resources that is coming in, that you expect to come in, and you are putting it in infrastructure. So let's say the government wasn't scamping us through infrastructure. They were indeed sincere with infrastructure. We're going to have the best bridges, the best roads, lots of roads, adequate roads, and so on. But we're going to have a dumb society. Nice, shiny, big roads, and we have people who are not literate, a population that's not literate in numeracy. So let's say you're fixing the road for investors to come in. Investors are not only looking for infrastructure, good infrastructure, they're also looking for a skilled workforce. And a skilled workforce, the basis of any skilled workforce is the literacy of the workforce. So you're building roads for investors to come in, but you're not building mines for investors to come in. Investors are not going to come just for roads. Or they're going to come for the roads, but they're going to walk with their labor. Because you are not providing the level of skilled labor that is needed to attract investors. I mean, we are living in a technological age. And mathematics is at the basis of developing your technological capacity. So again, you're building the roads open to attract investors, but investors are not going to come for roads alone. Or you're building the roads so that people can move from one place to the other very quickly. And people are going to buy cars. They can't read and write properly. They're not going to be able to pass their driver's license exam. And so what do they buy? The driver's license, accident galore on the roads. So this is not a government that understands what it is to have a larger vision. A vision that brings together the priorities as far as development is concerned. What are the areas of priority? Education, healthcare, infrastructure, wages and salary. And when you put all of that together and you say, okay, so I have these 8 priorities. Here is the amount of money we have at our disposal. Here is the amount of money that we are expecting. Here's the amount of money we are borrowing. This is what we have. This is the vision. Let us now distribute the resources based on the larger vision that we have. That is not what we are seeing from this government.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Just to drive home the point that you made about the, as I would say, correlation or the failure of the government to see the correlation between the education of citizens and development or attracting investors. Let me share with you a story from Travis Chase. Breaking, this is 16 hours ago yesterday. Breaking, AGP Nightly News, nearly 400 people will lose their jobs come November 2024. As ITEL Guyana, located at 8182 Camp and Rob Streets, will close its site. ITEL, a business process outsourcing provider, said that after extensive analysis and discussion amongst their leadership team, board members and stakeholders, and despite the investments made, they have no choice but to accept that the Georgetown site is no longer sustainable within their business model. In a letter dispatched to SAF on September 10, 2024, ITEL said, quote, "We believe that Guyana is a gem within the Caribbean and has great potential. When we chose to invest in Ghana, we did so with every intention of making it a destination of choice for contact centers. Yet, we have faced growing challenges despite the country's continued economic growth, end quote. Open quote. As Ghana's economy expands, the cost of doing business is rising, and it's getting harder and harder to find and retain qualified candidates. This makes it difficult to attract and retain Fortune 500 clients, which is critical to maintaining a steady flow of business into the center, end quote. The management of the company noted also that every effort has been made to work with the team on the ground to address attrition and absenteeism, cut costs, and engage the labor force. Quote, despite these efforts, we did not see the improvement we needed in order to take our site and team to the next level, end quote, the company noted. Right? And so here it is, we're spending hundreds of billions saying that we're investing in infrastructure. Like you said, we're neglecting education. We're failing in the education policies. And the impact is right before our eyes to see 400 persons are going to be laid off in a matter of a few mornings because the employers are saying, listen, we haven't been able to find the kind of qualification that we're looking for or that is necessary to drive this business. Cost of operations keep rising. And so we have to beat out of here and perhaps go somewhere else, right? The other concern for me is all of the spending. We're seeing all of the mediocrity in the execution of the projects all of these monies are being spent on. It's good, as many will say, like you rightly said, debt is not such a bad thing. But what happens when these projects fail within a short period of time, and then the society doesn't get the full benefit of the spending, and the nation is then left burdened with the debts of the repayment? What happens then? What are the long-term implications of this level of borrowing to execute these projects, albeit that, according to the World Bank and so on, maybe 37 to 47% of this money is being wasted?
Well, you see, again, I go back, the problem is not the borrowing. The countries borrow, that's normal. That's how the financial system operates. In a country, you talk to people who have small to medium-sized business, and they have certain facilities at the bank that they go and borrow money. They pay their wages this week. They make money next week. They pay back what they borrowed last week, and they borrow this week for next week. That's normal in business. So that's why I'm not stressing on the debt. We have monies coming in to cover the debt. The problem is not the debt. The problem is not the debt. The problem is how the government spends the money. And that is what is going to have long-term implications for the country. It is not the debt. Like I said, the debt is normal, and I wouldn't put my energies there. My energies is having borrowed the money, and you're going to pay the money, you're going to read the NRF, and you're going to pay your debt, and so on and so forth. We are capable of paying the debt, given the barrels of oil that are being anticipated in the next couple of years. The problem is how you're spending the money. And that company, I noted it in the news today, is a classic example of where the problem is. When you're laying off 400 and something workers in a small society like ours, there's a lot of workers. If you're talking about 4 people per family, an average of a family of 4, right? You're talking about close to 2,000 people who are going to be directly affected. And you don't move from one company of that seemingly of that level, skill level, and find another company, another job like that. And so what it shows is poor planning by the government. You're bringing in Fortune 500 companies, right? Fortune 500 companies demand a certain kind of labor, a certain kind of skill set. Are you training people to meet that requirement with the kind of investment that you're going after? And in any case, whether you're training people at a certain level, where you're talking about accountants, financial analysts, and so on, you don't produce that kind of high level skill overnight. That skill, you have to have an education system that is geared towards producing that kind of skill, and it starts with basic things like math. So you don't have a long-term plan to produce the kind of skill to meet the demands of that kind of investment. It's just non-planning, poor planning, no vision on the part of the government. That's where the problem is. That's where the problem. If you go and you telling the government about debt, I mean, they will eat you raw, because standard economics will say that, you know, debt is normative, right? Especially for a country that is getting the kind of resources that we have. I mean, you know, it is what they do with the debt, what they do with the money that they're borrowing, right? That you're engaging in investments, you're spending money on things, and you're not getting the necessary outcome from it. That is why very quickly they got to go back into the NRF, they got to go back into the supplemental and ask for money. Because the budget in the first place is not based on a vision. And so when after 6 months you discover, I need money for health, I need money for this, I need money for that, you got to go back to the supplemental, because in the first place you did not have, your budget was not based on clear priorities, clear outcomes, was not based on a coherent view of the country's challenges, the country's potential, and then you spend money based on that. No. If you are looking for that kind of skill and you to bring for Fortune 500 companies here, you have to, your education sector has to be linked to that. University of Guyana is pivotal in producing that kind of skill. But the University of Guyana will tell you that it can produce that type of skill if you having students who are coming in who are not able to pass math. I understand that at UG, you know, they have to do their own remedial math thing there, because students are obviously applying and don't have math. And for most of the subject areas, you need mathematics. And I understand UG is having its own remedial exam for them to take. But if you come past mathematics at CSEC and CXC, or you going to pass mathematics at the UG exam, you know, it's really lack of planning. And the lack of planning comes from a lack of vision. And the lack of vision comes from people who are not skilled in statecraft, people who are not skilled in distributing resources, and people who do not set out to develop the human capacity of their country.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. I noticed a document circulating, I don't know if you've seen it, of lands that have been taken away from the people at Mocha. And I would say we are assigned to friends and cronies of the PPP. Have you seen that document?
Yes, I've seen it.
And what should I say are your immediate reactions to a government which claims that, because I listened to a program with Rickford Burke and Paul Slow, I think the program is called Ride Along, and the so-called Minister of Information, Kwame McCoy, called into that program to again say that, you know, the PPP is not racist, it's not anti-African, it's not discriminatory. But when we see the document, we see that all of the lands that were taken away are previously allocated to people in Moko, and then taken away and reallocated to friends and families of the PPP. How do you react? What are your immediate reactions to
My immediate reaction is to fight the
developments
government, and
such as those?
my immediate reaction is to up the fight against the government. I mean, there's nothing else to talk about there. We knew that that was going to happen. And, look, we have said 3 years ago, we said this is a country of an emerging apartheid state. And the government blasted us. And some black people felt that we were going too far. Well, does the evidence show that we were going too far? The evidence shows that we are in order.
You suggest that we need to up the fight. Care to clarify that?
There's nothing to clarify about that, I think, Brother Tidaki.
Well, one might ask of the fight, are we even fighting? Because there are so many battles out there that should be fought that the populace is of the opinion. Certainly a large majority of our viewers are of the opinion, that, hey, no fighting taking place. We got electoral battles to fight.
Well, that is denying our humanity. Human beings fight. Part of our nature is fighting. We're always fighting. We may not be on the road licking down things and carrying on and so on, but we're fighting. I do not share the view that we're not fighting. We may not be fighting adequately, but we're fighting. I got up from my bed early this morning to fight. You got up early from your bed to fight. Those 700-800 people who are with us right now, they're fighting.
Very well.
I don't buy this thing that we are not fighting. To say we're not fighting is to say we are not human beings. We are human beings. We are fighting. Is the fight adequate? Are we getting the most effective leadership? Because leadership is very important in political fight. Citizens don't get up every morning and say, I'm going out on the road and fight. It doesn't happen like that. We all know that. You build a movement, and then there's a moment, and people grab that moment, and we call that moment the revolution. We call that moment the uprising. We call that moment. But we have to fight all the time and prepare to get to that point, so that when that opening comes, our people take advantage of it.
So, are we fighting adequate?
Yeah, well, that is, I don't want to get into that this morning.
Okay.
I just want to say that we are fighting and to encourage more people to contribute to that fight so that we are preparing for that moment when the dam bursts or the pipe bursts, that we are able to push it to its final conclusion.
Very well. We heard recently that the government is making moves to amend the Cybercrime Act. Some of the utterances, some of the alleged statements coming out of representatives of the government suggest what I would want to call some draconian inserts. I noticed also that Richard Burke, among others, have had cause to publish information suggesting that leading American politicians or lawmakers have suggested that what is being told to the Guyanese people by the Attorney General is a total misrepresentation of what the UN convention is suggesting in relation to the amendments that are necessary to cybercrime laws. We see it as the suggested amendments as efforts to shut down and hunt down social media influencers and commentators who continuously expose the government and the government's wickedness. I see that there is a need for fight there. What are your suggestions as to how, what are the possible ways of tackling this situation and ensuring that those draconian amendments are not passed in the National Assembly?
Well, first of all, you do what Brookford Burke did. It's to first of all expose. The government hasn't given us a draft yet. But what Burke and others have done is that they've preempted the government and said, this is what the government is planning. It could have two effects. It could push them back on the back foot and prevent them from going ahead with the draconian laws. Or, a phase this government is, right? It can go ahead with the draconian laws, but we are going to be in front of them because we would have exposed it to the general population that this is what they were doing, and in many regards we would be prepared for it. So we would be in front of them, and so that's the fight. That's part of the fight that I'm talking about.
As the identified presidential candidate and co-leader of the Working People's Alliance,
of which you are a part, so don't ask me no question as if you are not a member of the WPA, right? There's no devil's advocate question here, right? You're interviewing a brother, executive member of the WPA, so don't ask me no question. That is devil's advocate question. Let me give you that disclaimer up front. Go ahead now.
As the identified presidential candidate and co-leader of the Working People's Alliance, given all of these recent challenges, as I see them, challenges, political challenges,
yes,
economic challenges, the quote-unquote late release of the AFIA report, what is the party's position on the current behavior of the PPP? And what are some of the proposals, I dare ask, for dealing with this misbehavior?
Well, you're asking me some very broad question there. You know, the government attitude, I spent the last 45 minutes talking about the government attitude. You asked me about proposals. What particular proposal are you talking about? I mean, you're part of the WP executive, so you would be au fait as to what we're talking about, what our proposal are. So, you know, I mean, talk to me from a position of information, of an informed thing. You know,
well, I generally, for the fact that I sit around the table, I try not to influence the conversation based on what I hear on the table. I generally want to give you that leverage to inform, and that is why I ask, quote unquote, these broad questions.
Yeah, I know, but you leave that for the other journalists who are not part. You're not a conventional journalist. You are a social media influencer with a particular partisan outlook. And if you have me here, it's two of us. Let us together help me and I help you. Or since I am the interviewee, help me to advance the thing. Don't ask me questions as though you just come from the Guyana Times or Sabrok News.
All right, and so let me be specific to the half-year report. For example, it is the WPA's position that Guyanese have been distracted or misinformed, disinformed in relation to the oil wealth and the need for renegotiation or non-negotiation of the oil contract. We are advised, let me say, that it is not all doom. It's not all gloom. Explain to the viewership, if you will, how the WPA sees the current management of the oil sector.
Well, I think what you're getting at is the attitude that we have taken. You see, the politics in Guyana is that if you are the PPP, there's absolutely nothing that comes from the PNC, the AFC, and the WPA that you will agree with, whether it makes sense or don't make sense. And if you are opposition party member, there's absolutely nothing that the PPP does that will make sense. So if you noted this morning, when you raised the question of debt, I said debt is not a bad thing. The reflex attitude on the part of opposition parties, because of the way in which this government has mismanaged our country, the bad-mindedness of the government, the spitefulness of the government, the knee-jerk response of the opposition is really to start always that once the government says something, you know, we just have to tear it apart whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense or anything. The WPA rejects that kind of approach, all right? So like we were talking about the debt, we as I said, we do not feel that the debt is a bad thing. And so we shift the conversation from the debt to the distribution of the resources, because we think that's where the problem is. The problem is not the debt. Because you're going to find that if we take government tomorrow, we will borrow. We will borrow because that's what governments do. Especially, like I said, governments that expect the kind of money to come in. So that our general approach is not to hit the PPP for the sake of hitting the PPP, but it's to hit the PPP in the areas that we feel that they are most vulnerable. And so we are not going to have that conversation on debt, on borrowing. Rather, we're going to have the conversation on how you distribute the resources that you have. So I think that's where you are going. As far as the half-yearly report is concerned, we think that it's a good half-yearly report. I mean, if your country's GDP is going to grow by 48%, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But then you raise the question, if the GDP has risen by 48%, why are you only offering teachers 10%? So we shift the conversation from the half-yearly report and the good numbers that we are seeing there to say, how does that now translate into development, into a development of people? And you move the conversation there. So that is where the WPA feel that the conversation has to be, right? Now, is the oil contract lopsided? Of course it is. Should we be getting more? Of course we should. Are we getting more than we ever had? Of course. Is it within our immediate control to get more from Exxon? No. Is it within our immediate control to do a better job at distributing what we get? Yes. You see, if you analytically and logically ask those questions and you answer this question, is that then you prioritize, right? I don't have any problem with the brothers and sisters who are fighting for a better contract and all of those things. We in the WPA have absolutely no problem with them. But we are saying we are not hearing from those people any critique of how the government is spending the little that is getting, and the little that is getting is plenty for we. That's not what we are hearing from the people who are fighting for a better deal from Exxon. We're not hearing, yes, we should be getting more from Exxon, but what we are getting now is, 1,000 times more than we were getting. And secondly, the government is misdistributing what we are getting. We're not hearing that from the people on the other side who are correctly critiquing Exxon. What we hear, certainly what somebody like myself hear all the time, is an emphasis on Exxon and not an emphasis on our government. So we are still beating Raphael Trotman for the contract that he signed. Rafael Trotman signed the contract at a particular time, 5, 6, 7 years ago. We have gone past that. What are we doing now? What is at our disposal to do? You don't negotiate a new contract with the greatest and biggest company in the world overnight. You build up your leverage, because it is leverage that will get you to get some more from Exxon. And part of your leverage is that you have to have a national outlook on international capital. And we don't have a national outlook. And so the WPA is saying it's a matter of emphasis. That we feel that if the emphasis is placed on the government's management of the little we get, we are then able to hold that government more accountable. We are then able to push the government in a certain direction, which will then build up our stocks so that when we sit at the table with Exxon in the future, we are going there with better stocks than we had 5, 6 years ago. And so our attitude to the contract is that anybody can say, I am going to renegotiate the contract. Didn't the PPP say that? Have they renegotiated it? Why do we believe that the opposition parties will tell you, no, we're going to negotiate the contract, and when they get in, they will renegotiate it? You got to renegotiate with somebody, Exxon. You have to renegotiate with somebody. You're not negotiating with yourself. And so what we ought to be doing is to building up our stocks. We take what we are getting. We have no choice. And we are getting much more than we are. Is to build up the country's stock so that when we sit down in the future, we are able to use the development that we have in our country. We are able to use the national outlook on oil, a national development strategy as it relates to oil and the non-oil aspects of the economy, and then say to Exxon, let's talk. You don't go to Exxon and say, Exxon, let's renegotiate the contract. I promise my people that that's what we're going to do. And expect that that contract will be renewed. No. No. And so the WPA is saying that we have to shift the conversation to a common sense conversation. And the conversation is not about attacking the PPP or attacking the PNC, as the case may be. But it's about holding our government feet to the fire and to say the little that you're getting compared with Exxon is a lot compared with what we used to get. Let me get that straight. Because what we are doing when the doom and gloom, that we can't accept that our economy is growing, the GDP is growing. That's a reality. And it's not growing because of the PPP. The PPP will tell you that. But we have to say the GDP is growing in spite of the PPP. Guyana happens to be lucky. That's why the GDP is growing. Not because of the PPP. It's that we are damn lucky. And so we must not be afraid to say that there is growth in our economy. There is growth. That people today are earning a little bit more, but they need to earn 50 times more than they're earning now. But you can't make a sensible argument if you start off with doom and gloom that we don't have development, we don't have growth, sorry. We have growth without development. So the WPA position is not to deny the growth, to accept that we have growth. And because we have growth, there are expectations that go with growth. And we are not seeing the realization of those expectations. So we have growth without development. That is what we have in mind. And that's where we would like the conversation to be. Not to deny that there is growth. Accept that there is growth. And the growth is in spite of the PPP, not because of the PPP. What the PPP is doing, it is not translating the growth into development.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. When St. Jordan tells us that the debt becomes a problem when the borrowing is reckless, then the type of debt being taken, the projects that are being undertaken using loan funds, whether that borrowing is taking place in the context of a medium to long-term development plan. Given our experience in the 70s, 90s, and the numerous failed projects post-1992, it takes a bold person to say, quote, the debt is not the problem.
Well, I rather take that bold step. I mean, I'm not quarreling with Winston because he's an economist and he brings an economist eye to it and so on. I am speaking in the broad political economy from the perspective of broad political economy, that we don't get our people to believe that debt in itself, borrowing in itself, is a bad thing. We all go to the bank to borrow. We borrow money from the bank to build our homes, to start businesses and so on. We don't want our people to believe that borrowing. I agree with Winston, and he may be saying it much more polished than I am, but I think we are saying the same thing. It's not that borrowing could not become a problem, but of course, ultimately, if you borrow and the money you borrow, you're spending it recklessly and you're not getting outcomes, of course. Of course. But I'm saying the problem is not your borrowing. The problem is your management of the economy. It is not that borrowing in the final analysis will not be will not be factored in your failure. But I'm saying we can't beat down a government because it borrows money. It is the reckless spending of the money, as Winston is saying. So I don't think we are disagreeing too much. I'm just trying to say that, look, the areas that we want to tackle this government on, we may get some traction for a day or two if we talk to them on, well, you're borrowing plenty money. And then, they're going to give us the standard answer. We expect money to come in, and so we are borrowing. But if you shift, you borrow the money, how spending this money? How much define the borrowing? I think we punch them at a softer spot. And so it's just a matter of emphasis. But I do agree with Mr. Jordan that reckless spending is a bad thing. It does reckless. Borrowing is not matched by proper management and distribution of what you're borrowing. In the end, the borrowing doesn't make sense. But you don't want to let your citizens believe borrowing is a bad thing, because we all borrow, right? We all borrow.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. It is 28 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. It's the 11th of September, and you're tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. Let's take a short commercial break, and when we return, we shall open up the lines.
The People's National Congress Reform presents Emerald Splash, a Georgetown to Linden bus excursion and pool party on Sunday, September 22nd from Congress Place to the Toucan Complex poolside in Amelia's Ward. Music by Hot to Vibe Sound and Alti One Man Band. Excursion tickets cost $5,000. Available at Congress Place Sophia. Venue entrance fee $1,000. Buses leave Congress Place at 9 a.m. sharp. It's the Emerald Splash Bus Excursion and Pool Party. Let's take a drive and bust a line with the PNCR.
Take a drive and bust a line with PNCR. Emerald Splash, Sunday, September 22nd. Yes, watch this space for more information. But like I said, take a drive and bust a line. But on Friday, the 27th of September, come down here. Come down to Twilight. For Friday Night Laughs with Chow Po and Jumbie Jones, right? Chow Po and Jumbie Jones. Come down here for good laughter with Chow Po and Jumbie Jones. Admission is cheap; it's only $500. But I can tell you, those of you who know Club Twilight, you have to reserve your table quickly. Otherwise, you are left standing somewhere or sitting somewhere without a table. And a night like this, you want to have a table with all your friends so that you can have a good laugh. And of course, there's open mic for the brave. So it's not only Chow Po and Jumbie Jones entertaining you and those who are here, but if you believe that you have jokes to share and you're brave, then you too can take the mic. It's like the karaoke of comedies, right? It's like a karaoke of comics. So you can come down on the 27th. The doors open at 7 o'clock. Please make your presence felt. And since there was a request for those of you are overseas or right here in Guyana but can't make it to Club Twilight, you have an interest in seeing the show, being a part of the show, I did say that we can do that. We can make that happen. For a fee, we can entertain you via Zoom. We're going to do a two-camera shoot. We're going to ensure that the audio and video are clear and good enough, worth your money. And so professionally done, let me say that, so that you can enjoy your money's worth. But you will have to communicate with me on that, and so that we know that, hey, you would like to have this service, so we can put the systems in place so that you can be part of Friday Night Laughs on the 27th of September via Zoom. And I'm sure you will enjoy it. Friday Night Laughs is going to be a thing every last Friday of the month at Club Twilight. This is the first one we're going to have. And so the entertainers, I don't want to say the comedians, the entertainers are going to be varied. So this Friday, September 27th, we have Jumbie Jones and Chow Po. And then October, we're likely to have another two entertainers and so on. And look out also, there's going to be the Christmas market, which will take place. Like we had the Business Expo, we're planning a Christmas market for sometime around the 20th of December, right on the Church of God Road there. And so those of you who have things to exhibit, those of you who are into Christmas crafts and productions and so on, start putting your stuff together, because we want to showcase what is being done, not only in Buxton, but throughout Guyana, and especially among Afro-Guyanese. Carter, thank you for your patience, your life. Caller, your life.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to you and Dr. Hines and all my other black brothers and sisters in Guyana. Let me say this here. When we fight together, we will win together. Yes, Flash Garden saying that all the time. Mr. David opened my own cans of worm this morning. Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Every Guyanese now in Guyana want to be chief, but they don't want to be Apache. That means everybody want to be president candidates, but they don't want to protest. I got 3 questions for Mr. David. Not personal question, in the line of politics and politics. Because you are a leader, and because from the last time, you and Mr. Nigel, you joined on with my leader, Mr. Abinat from PNC. That garden ain't seen no views yet. now no benefit yet. That is why I come to this conclusion to ask you these questions, because what is it is not no coalition yet when the ball is rolling. Now, I could remember when Sharon Duncan came out. You see, I love old news, because old news, you just get all the truth and the facts from it. New news don't give out the facts. And nobody don't pay it no mind, but old news now, like Fat God now. I could remember when Sharon Duncan came out and said he will be running for the leadership for his party, AFC, where he worked hard for years. But they come, and he said too, that day one, it will be a coalition. But you came out and said, oh God, you know, actions speak louder than words. Oh God, Sharon, step aside. Oh no, don't do that. Step aside and let Mr. Hughes become leader and automatically president for Guyana. That is one question for you. I want you to explain it, because I'm confused. But because of this coalition is not farming now, I want to know the reason why you mentioned those words. Now, the next question, I believe it was last week. You mentioned and said, oh, by the way, AFC is not a party of protest. But to the other hand, you just come and say, oh, the people that need leadership, use the largest party for the coalition, and you have a big. But then again, you represented AFC. How we want a new voter list? Tomorrow we'll talk about a new voter list. The last question for you. You mentioned that a young lady approached you, and she said, Mr. David, I don't like what Mr. Green did. Well, he did all the wrong thing, but life goes on. We forget it. But the point I'm making, I'm asking you, the last election, she went and she spilled our vote. What explanation did you give to all? The right word is bitter me. But what did you mention to her? What did you let her know if it was right or wrong, that she could leave and don't do that nonsense, that call it nonsense again? Because why you must wake up early and go to the vote and spy your vote? It is not the end of the world, my sister, if you're listening. But what you did, you damaged your children's future and your own future too. Thank you for listening. And I want to hear your explanation, because time is going with this election. Thank you.
Thank you for your call, Dr. Hines.
Well, some of what Flash Gordon said is broken up, so didn't get the last part. But I think he's asking what is wrong, what is happening to the coalition. I can only answer for the WPA. It is the WPA who took the initiative, brought the other two leaders on stage and get it over hands. And you know, if Flash Gordon and others have been listening to the WPA, they know that we have been pushing coalition, but we can't collate with ourselves. Flash Gordon has to ask that question of his leader, Aubrey Norton, and the leader of the AFC. He's asking me the question, and I'm saying you can tell from our body language, from our rhetoric, that we are pro-coalition, and we've been hollering for the last 4 years for an a joint opposition front, a joint opposition grouping that will lead the fight, execute the fight for a clean voters list, biometrics, etc. We are of the view that no single party can do it on its own. We made some headway in the first couple of months. When Mr. Norton came to power, we had a meeting at Burnham Court, then we had another one at Golden Grove. We've been pushing for coalition, not just for the election, fight for that election. We are only one party. Flash Gordon should ask that question of Mr. Norton and Mr. Hughes also.
Thank you. We have Vincent Jordan on the line. Morning, Mr. Jordan.
Morning, Kadaki. Sorry to intrude on your program, but I thought that Dr. Hinds had touched a nerve on some aspects of the economy. And I'm afraid, the reason why I'm gone is because I'm afraid of a headline that says, nothing is wrong with borrowing, so says Dr. Hinds. The economy has performed exceptionally well, so says Dr. Hinds. Right? Now, those headlines you could virtually see because it's coming from an opposition person and quote-unquote praising the government. Nothing wrong with praising the government, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the way how it has put out there has got the government jumping for joy because they will cut out those headlines and put there and so Dr. Hinds will have to continuously go on saying, yes, he said that, but he means this and so on. Hence my comment that says, look, the borrowing is a problem. Yes, I agree with Dr. Hinds. Nothing is wrong with borrowing. I agree. But you have to go on and explain that statement very comprehensively. Don't leave it like that. What is happening right now that we are mortgaging our future on the pretext that we have, well, I don't know if it's 11 billion, 18 billion, 30 billion barrels of oil there, and we expect so much money down the road, and therefore we can pay back the debt. This is the same thing that was done by Ghana, Nigeria, Mozambique, and you could name all the others who mortgaged their future on the understanding that revenues will come. So they went on a borrowing spree. Today, Ghana's economy is in shambles. Nigerian economy is in shambles. Mozambican economy is in shambles. Nobody say you can't borrow. But some of the characteristics of the borrowing that I put on there, you have to ensure. Guyana is replete itself with huge number of projects for which we borrowed money, and what are they doing today? They're not generating a single income for us. You know how much money we borrowed for Gaisuko? You know how much money we have borrowed for Gaisuko? As the half-year report has just suggested, we have just paid off the bond that we took in 2018. And that bond was $40 billion. So they've just paid it off last year. We borrowed for the Skeldon estate. We borrowed from CDB. We borrowed from everybody who could give us money, China and everybody. We borrowed Skeldon. We borrowed money for run cable from Brazil to, you name it. None of these projects is helping us today. We, the government, the central government, has to turn around and pay off all of those debts. And who could forget what happened in the 1970s? Yes, we didn't borrow. By 1992, the debt was 2.1 billion. But we didn't borrow 2.1 billion. We borrowed approximately 800 million US. The rest was in interest and penalty fees. Then we could not pay back. So don't let us run away the debt. The debt in the context of what we have borrowed so far is a problem. It's a problem. You borrowed to put down 5 regional hospitals with no plan in place about whether we want 5 regional hospitals, how we are going to maintain those 5 regional hospitals and so on. And yet we have a history. We rebuilt the New Amsterdam Hospital with Japanese funds fairly recently. And now we are abandoning that hospital to build a new one again with borrowed funds. We're building one of our biggest hospitals in Ogle, Women and Children's Hospital. We borrowed money for that. And there's so much more borrowing that has taken place, a lot of it in the social sector. But everybody will tell you there must be a judicious mix of borrowing between the social sector and the productive sectors, so that the productive sectors can generate the income to help repay the borrowing that you took in the social sector. But I think the audience get the gist of what I'm saying. Don't leave a statement out there that borrowing is not the problem. Because again, it will suggest that we got a lot of money coming. We don't control oil. We don't control futures. We don't control prices. And the day Venezuela gets its act together and they start producing again, we don't know what will be our story. They got 200 billion barrels in reserves. We got 11 to say, or 18, or whatever the case may be. So we have to be judicious, especially at the time when we got a natural resource fund that is generating 1.5 billion to almost 2 billion annually. So it's not as if we ain't got money. We have money that we could spend judiciously on selective projects that will help advance the economy, not what we're doing today. And a lot of what people don't know is that a significant part of that debt that we have accumulated is local debt, which means you can't write off, you're borrowing from the banks. You can't write that debt off. You can't go begging me to forego my little 2 cents in the bank or take a cut of my 2 cents because the government can't pay back. Most of the debt is local debt. It's the borrowing from the banking system. And then quickly, the 49.7 growth. None of us in Guyana is carried away by 49.7% growth, including Dr. HINDS. So let's get that up front. Yes, we are growing 49.7%. But we also have a poverty rate that is sticky. It's not moving. It's stuck. 49.7%. We still have that poverty rate, and God bless its national sources, not from Guyana. So yes, we got the growth due to the very same oil that they're costing out all the time. And we have the non-oil growth due to the very same oil that they're costing out all the time. But when we say yes, the economy is growing, we have to look at all the other things that appear stagnant or have regressed. Whether it's inflation, whether it's the water coming through your pipe, whether it's the erratic electricity that continues, and even some of the projects that they have going on that they say that will help improve this situation, like the gas to shore or gas to energy. Where is that going, by the way? The only way it's going is a rising cost. That's where it's going, rising cost, such that nobody's using anymore, that your electricity bill is going to be cut by half. That now seems to have gone through the window. Beautiful thing is these papers are there before, where a man shows that rather than cutting bill by 50%, we may end up paying more than we're paying today as a result of the gas to shore. So those are some of the things. I don't know that they'll be able to deal with them tomorrow because I have a whole scenario to deal with tomorrow. But Dr. I'm glad you raised it, but I think you should make certain that them two headlines don't hit the press later today or tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Dr. HINDS?
Well, I don't know. I said that that I do not think that the debt is really the problem. No, and I stick to that. The problem is having borrowed the money, what you do with the money.
All right, it's 30 minutes to all right, we are having some internet connectivity issues, it seems. It's 30 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. I will take another call. Call your life.
Morning, Dr. HINDS. Morning, Kadaki. All I'm seeing is coming from PPP is violence. Violence. Taking away our lands and giving it to friends and crony. Trying to silence us, etc. Everything PPP does, they do it with violence against Black people. And our reply to that is academic. We come with diplomacy. We depend on the international community. We report to the international community who has no concern about us anymore, right? Because they get what they want. In every country that you see they got wealth, they are happy when they see violence and what's not break out there. They only respond when they think, when their interest is at stake. right? We're returning. What are we returning? Let's look in the press, let's to this, let's to that, let's to that. That is how we're fighting back. We're talking whole day, every day, and expecting something to come and help us. Faith. I'm going to say something to young people. We are in a revolution. I, for one, over here, I realize that something is going on. And I am preparing at weekends to do a certain thing, to prepare myself. Young people, start getting physical. Start preparing yourself. You put yourself physically together. Go run, go train, go do stuff. We are in a revolution. And when this bubble busts, if you ain't prepared, you can't run a mile, much as 10 miles. Because it will call for running against the heat. It's going to call to run against the heat. We got to stop this thing by returning. When we violently attack, we're going to go back and we're going to write a letter. It ain't working. Certain people do not respond or understand diplomacy, letter writing, and talk, because they realize they see our game. Our game is just chat. They see our game and they don't care. They only respond when heat catch them. That's all I have to say for this morning.
Thank you for your call. Caller, your life. Caller, you're on.
Morning, Eve. Morning, Dr. Himes. Dr. Himes, glad that you're on. Because I was always wanting to get you to have a conversation concerning when you've been on group span with Ravi Dev and the other guys. And I've noticed, Dr. Himes, that when Ravi Dev is speaking, he always talking about crying foul on things that he might deem as, he always deem it as being racist or attack against Indians and all kinds of things. Talk about Coretta McDonald, talk about Run the Lane and all of these things. And I would like you to remind him or to share his views, or if he ever talk to the party that supports the PPP concerning the guy that spot on the black system who is a police officer. If he ever talk about the guy that talk about poisoning out black people and these kinds of things, because I always hear him talking and he always wanting you to be the one. And I'm glad that you have to pull him up by telling him to ask that he must ask the PPP certain questions that he wants you to be the one to ask them. And so on the next show, must please remind him about those incidents that was done by some Indian brothers and sisters to brothers and sisters of African descent. Must please remind him of that, especially the one where the liars fought on the black police officer and where the young boy talk about killing out black. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Carl Jacobs tells us this government knows that they mean to put a debt in the coffers so the next government will struggle like hell. Then this wicked PPP says they're going to free up the main bridges. Who's paying for the maintenance of those bridges? They're going to soon run out of oil because the way this regime handling the monies, it's sad and wickedness. Doctor, is there any comments you want to make here?
No, I just want to say that I just don't want the impression to be given that there is some big disagreement with myself and Mr. Jordan. I don't see a disagreement, and it's a matter of emphasis.
Thank you. Voice note.
I said it as eloquent. They said it. I'm not finished.
Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead. I recognize that is why I didn't play it.
The kind that your management for your borrowing. That the borrowing in itself is not the problem. Is how you manage the money once you borrow it. And the government management of the economy does not justify the borrowing. I just don't want to give the impression that borrowing in itself is a bad thing. That is the point I wish to make. And I do know that in our and I'm quite aware of that, and Winston is correct with that. But I don't think that there is any big disagreement on what we are saying.
Thank you. We have a voice note to play.
Kadaki, Dr. Hinds, good morning to you both gentlemen. Dr. Hinds, I listened to your program last night and I listened to that woman carefully. That woman is a smart, intelligent, brave, and courageous woman. Simona Brooms and Coretta McDonald, I don't know if I got her name correct, but these three women will play a major role in this struggle. Mr. Norton have to get these women on his bandwagon to struggle, because they know the struggle, and for some reason I love Mr. Norton, but Mr. Norton giving me an impression like he's a half-hearted politician. To get freedom, to be free, you had to fight and you had to struggle. Please, Mr. Norton, come on. Serious time call for serious measures. Come on and do it, man. Have a good one.
Thank you for that voice note. Dr. Hinds, is 4 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. Your closing statements, please.
Well, another good discussion. I think we are and I noted one caller said that we're talking too much, that we're in a revolution. But I just want to let that caller know there's a reason you don't have revolution every day. And he's preparing for the revolution. That is what we're doing every day. And part of the preparation for the revolution is that you've got to talk. You've got to engage in fighting talk, right? So I just struggled a little bit when I heard the caller say, we're talking. There's a reason why revolutions don't happen every day. And look, the point is that I don't know that they felt country where they're pushing this country economically, where they're pushing this country politically. I don't think they have social, political, and economic history, social, political, and economic theory. I don't think they do. And I'm trying to be kindness because they may be bright boys. I have no doubt about that, but they're not bringing the brightness to bear on thinking through. And big mistakes they're making. We are heading towards an economic collision. I mean, Jordan is your 40% growth at the half-yearly report is happening in spite of the PPP, not because of the PPP. the illiteracy rate, the poverty rate. The PPP can do something about that because they got lucky. They are in government when resources are flowing. They can do something about poverty. They can do something, and they are not able to do anything about that. And so, high growth rate, high poverty rate, high illiteracy rate, you're bound to have a collision between labor and capital, and the government is standing on the side of reckless capital. There is going to be a collision. I don't know if they have studied the history to recognize where we're headed. There is going to be a political collision because it has to do with the distribution of resources. You can get away for a long time, as many governments, by redistributing wealth unequally, inequitably, from a class perspective. Going to be able to get away, and so we are heading down the road of an ethnic collision course. I don't know that the fellows in government understand what they're playing with. I don't think that in terms of management of governance, I don't think they have an intellectual sense, intellectual level where they're pushing our country. They may, in a crude way, they know that you're going to get pushback, and they feel that they can use the power at their disposal. So the way you deal with social media protest is you beef up the cybercrime law. And I think that's a crude understanding of social motion, that you feel that the way you can delay, or the way that you can obliterate the natural human tendency to resist autocracy and dictatorship. You put in laws and that will get rid of it. I think that's a very crude understanding of the society. And I think that's where the danger in Guyana lies, right? It is that these people have little or no understanding, or they have a crude understanding. And, in some regards, a certain kind of resistance as their success in subduing the population. They actually feel that they have done that. They subdued the population because they're not seeing a certain kind of action. But then they contradict themselves by wanting to beat up Melly Mel or beat up Rickford Burke or whoever else, jail whoever else, which is then a recognition that they have not totally subdued people. So we have this contradiction in front of our faces. And contrary to what some of our supporters think, this thing is not going to end well, to quote this government continues to do what it is doing. and it is showing no intention. No intention. It is not going to end well. You know, we've been talking about the sense of, you have a sense of the numbers and how you spend and so on. But if you're not grounded in economic theory, economic philosophy, economic thought, which I don't think Jack Dio makes any pretense to. He doesn't make any pretense to economic thought. They're driving this country. They're driving this country to a point where it's not going to end nice. Look at the blows Mr. Norton is taking for saying that he's not prepared to go on the streets. Doesn't that say to them that, look, I mean, y'all are playing with trouble here? They should be praising Norton. But every day they're cussing him. Every day they're cussing him. Every day they're cussing us. You know? Every day they're cussing us. Not because of anything we do, but because they feel that we stand in the way of the precipice that they're driving us towards. And I think it is that recklessness that is going to get us in serious trouble. And I've been around this so-called resistance, revolutionary thing now for 5 decades. And I've seen what happened. You know, Bob Marley said, no bullets can stop us now. We jamming. No bullet can stop us. You reach that point. You reach that point. Every society gets to that point.
Aye.
And if you have a government which is not cognizant of the fact that you're dealing with human beings who are rational beings, they may act irrationally sometimes, but we are essentially rational beings. And if you don't recognize that when you push rational beings to the point of irrationality, you're paying with serious trouble. As some of them do and say, well, you know, it is David Hines who is going to be responsible for whatever trouble coming to the country because he's telling people to undermine the government, and is he telling people to this? And it's all well and good to pinpoint some of us to blame. But as I told Rafi there the other night, don't lecture me about how I should behave. They want good Negroes. David Hines, you're now a chief. You're a presidential candidate. You must speak in a certain way. It is the I-pass of black people believe they can bribe us with some position. Call them a chief and they stop struggle. Call them presidential candidate and they put on nice clothes, shirt and tie, and they stop struggle. There is this view of us that we are simplistic. And I get angry when people take the eyes and pass black people in that way. And that's why when Dev was trying to tell me about my being a chief and presidential candidate, I must go and talk to Jack Dio and tell him he must stop shooting birds out of season. Because he got the guns and the bombs. I don't have that. Go tell him. Don't tell me. But it's not going to end nice once they continue, and I don't see any stop. Revolution is not a fool. You can fool plenty things, but you can't fool the emotions of people when they back it against the wall. Claude McKay said if he must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while wrong does bark the mad and hungry. Let us nobly die, that even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. McKay has an insight into the human spirit that these guys don't have, partly because they think some of us don't have spirit, and so I just wanted to sound that warning.
Dr. Hans, you have Orbin on the line.
Are going to be... Yes, sure.
Mr. Narn, you may proceed.
You behind the listeners.
Good morning, Orbin.
I heard Dr. Hines say that I said I'm not going to do street protests. I don't recall saying I'm not going to do street protests. I recall saying that street protests in which you just run on the road, the police confront you, and then it dies, make no sense. I think I further argued that there are two elements that cause street protest or a revolution or change. One of them is the raising of the consciousness so the people understand and become part of what you want to change. In this regard, I will thank Kadaki as one of the persons that he is helping to raise consciousness, and that should be commended. So those who say, stop talking, do not understand that you have to talk to get the message to the people. And not only must you get the message to the people, it has to arrive at a point where the people wanted to act or want to act. The second condition for revolution or change that revolutionaries contend is where the objective conditions are right. Meaning, the things the government doing, the ill things have arrived at the point where they themselves are leading to change. I agree with Dr. Hines that we are getting there. The government is doing so much nonsense, so much stupidness, that people are constantly agitated and want to see change. I want to go to the Linden protests, in which when I was part of that process, one of the first things we did was to guarantee the Indo-Guyanese community in Linden that this fight is not against Indians. It is a fight against the ills of the PPP. We are at present working in those communities, speaking to people. One has to recognize that the PPP does one thing. That is, they seek to create a situation where there is a fight between the Indo and Afro-Guyanese, and then use that to rally the Indians against the African Guyanese, and the struggle loses its focus, which is against the ills, incompetence, corruption, and wrongdoing of the PPP. I have contended that we need to do more work so that whenever we take whatever action, and I always said street protest is only one action, whenever we take whatever action, it should not result in giving the opportunity to the People's Progressive Party to turn Indians against blacks and rally the Indians towards them. I have engaged many Indians who will say to you, look, we agree what is done in Mecca was wrong. They would identify it, but their deep concern is that whenever street protests, etc. occur, it tends to turn into an ethnic clash. They'll achieve nothing at this stage. If the struggle we want becomes a struggle between Indians and Africans, when in fact it is the racist PPP regime that you want to deal with. May I also make this point? If you do the political work on the ground like we are doing, yesterday we were in an Indian community. I wasn't there, I mean in the party, and they tell you what is happening to them. What is happening to them is that there is a PPP elite in every community that benefiting everything and marginalizing them. If you are a political party what you solve, you have got to find ways and means of working with those communities to ensure when whatever actions are taken, they not only understand, but they are on your side. But Dr. HINDS will tell you that when the Quinlan Bacchus case occurred, and they were protesting, going down the street, I called him to say, this has dangers. Whether wrong or right, soon as they meet an Indian community, there is going to be a clash. And the PPP is going to come out and turn that clash against you. That happened. And Dr. HINDS can verify that I did engage him on this issue. What I am saying, there's another element. There are certain people in the society who believe they must instigate the average man to become in physical confrontation, and then they run and hide. And when the successes come, they take the credit. And if successes don't come, they join those who will describe you as thugs, etc. We have got to analyze the Ghana situation properly and then come to some clear conclusion and action. For the person who said we are engaging the international community, I want a person to understand we are not depending on the international community. We know, I come from a foreign policy background. We know that the Americans, the British, the Canadians, the Europeans have their interests and they will pursue their interests. But we also know where you don't have their support, you tend to lose because of the power they wield. Therefore, moving forward, our strategy has to be comprehensive. One, keeping in contact with the international community so they understand what is happening in Ghana. I think they have arrived at the point where they understand what is happening, they understand the injustices. We have to continue to raise the consciousness of the people. The government, by its actions, are creating the conditions, and then we have to become engaged in sensible political struggle to achieve our objectives. Let us not say to people, move in the direction. I heard one caller said the PPP only understand force, which I agree with. But if that force is not used properly, it can end up benefiting the PPP rather than benefiting. And so I'm saying to you, we need to continue to do our work. We need to engage young people, let them understand. Let us also remember You were not fighting in 1997 when I was leading protests. In 1997, the PPP did not have the money at their disposal to do some of the things that they are doing today. And so in everything you do, you have to look at all elements of the strategy. So I'm saying to you, I believe protests will come. But it would not be protests at the whims and fancies of Norton or David Hinds. It will be as a result of this process that is unfolding, and one will see protests. Let us also recognize that the world has changed. That even if you go to protest, you are not going to move the government by protest. And therefore, we must not close off the option of preparing to beat the PPP electorally. And you prepare in such a way to beat them. They cannot stay in power illegally. And so I'm merely saying to people, let us look at all elements of it. Let us understand the concept of change and act in a way that we will be successful. There is little or no sense in erupting into some form of violence, etc. And then the PPP uses its resources and pays somebody to come out and say, oh, this struggle is only affecting people and it is destroying people, like happened with the Henry boys, and you end up back to square one. I'm merely saying, let us be sensible, let us understand our history, let us understand the weaknesses, let us know our strengths, and then take action to ensure we succeed, rather than just say we had a protest. That is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Norton, Leader of the Opposition. Thank you. Dr. Hinds, you still there?
Yes.
I know I've had you made your closing remarks. Anything you wish to say quickly before you leave?
I just want to commend your star-studded program this morning, right? The former Minister of Finance, the Leader of the Opposition, and yours truly bringing in the rear. It's a rare occasion that you have all these voices on in one program, bringing perspectives. And like I said, it's good. It was good to hear from Jordan. And I said how the media can read certain statements, rather complimenting, if you will, what he thought my remarks were. And of course, the Leader of the Opposition there putting in parliamentary terms you know what I've been trying to say, revolutions don't happen every day, and I know people are frustrated, they want action and so on, but that's not how it happens. And I am confident that we are doing good work in terms of raising the consciousness, as the opposition leader said. Often is determined not by people getting up and say, going out on the road and protest or whatever it is. It's actually driven by the actions of those who have power. When you corner people, they will find ways of getting past you. I often give the story of the man in our village there, you know, lock up all the doors, them, you know, because he said he can't drink out the milk. Well, his son drink the milk out, but he believed that he can't drink the milk. And he, you know, he tell his wife, well, gutters, you know, chink all creases, close all doors. And he attacked the cat. And the cat ain't got no way for go. And the cat stand up on his 2 foot and go for spring pan him. He got the good sense to say gutters and chink all creases, open all windows, open all doors. After all, this is a tiger family. You know, and the PPP sometimes forget that we are human beings. And it is the way in which they corner us and they leave us with no space to express ourselves as human beings. And that is what determines protest and resistance, you know? And people may say that I'm talking theory, but this is not just theory. This is practice. This is what I have seen. It's government action. You study all over the world. It's the action of the powerful, whether that powerful is the government or the economic bourgeoisie, well, whatever you choose to call them. It is their action that determines the nature of protest, you know? So I'm glad Mr. Norton continues to explain what he meant, and he's correct. You know, we have to continue to organize and mobilize, and that includes self and other, and whisper among ourselves and plan among ourselves. And we're not talking to our people. Then our people don't have a sense of. Because I'm sure those people who say we're talking too much, the minute we stop talking, they themselves going to say, look what happened to them. I ain't hearing from Norton. I ain't hearing from David Hines. Whoa. You know? So sometimes we have to understand dealing with my brother Aubrey, and times they doubt that what we are doing is the right thing. But let us stop talking. And those very people will start tell us, come on, you all got to talk up. You all can't remain quiet. And I usually, Kidaki, as you know, I usually measure how well we are doing. Not so much by, you know, and those who are opposed to us, how they respond. Because how they respond tell us whether they think we are hitting them in the right place. And I tell you, we are hitting them some serious blows. That go into that. That is look, this morning they're telling us that it is a new command. The region 1 because of the cocaine. 15, 20 years ago, you know, that cocaine with the fund, we might have seen it in the use, and that's that. But that has forced government action. Recall the commander. Put another satisfactory. That's not what I'm saying. So I don't want to get a headline and say, Dr. Hines said the government has acted. No. But when they would not normally act, you hear them on the cybercrime. Oh no, we are not going after people. Oh no, we are not doing this. We haven't seen the draft yet of the cybercrime amendments. Of draconian things they want to put in place. But we are in front of them. We are in front of them now. They're barefaced. They're barefaced, we know that. But remember, we are alerting our people. We are alerting the international community. Put them to do what they will do. At the end of the day, they may well do it. But they will have to do it differently because we are in front of them using this. And often you don't see the results of that in a day or two. All right? And so we continue to keep on. But congratulations on your Stardom show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. I want it reflected in the Cash App and Zelle.
Get some shared with me.
Oh, yeah. Yes, let me remind you that Mr. Norton is going to be on Friday. He's going to be on Friday, right? We already have that program set for Friday. And so I want to thank you for tuning in today. Dr. Heinz, as usual, thank you for your sacrifices. I know it's early where you are, and we've
You
certainly
sound
had an
very much like
extended program.
You sound very much like the Americans telling the soldiers thank you for the sacrifices.
We got to talk about that debate. We ain't got enough time to talk about everything. So that debate last night. Maybe on Free Talk Friday we'll get a bit or two. I am expecting an extended program on Friday though. Go ahead.
I'll call in on Friday and thief back the time that Norton took from my program this morning.
All right. I'm expecting an extended program with Mr. Norton on Friday. At least I'm preparing for that. Because I want us to be able to interrogate all of these issues. So, folks, you have to make it worth my while. Have a good day. Much love. Talk to you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Mr. Jordan is on, and like you said, like you heard him say today, we got a whole, I would say, blueprint for tomorrow's program. So y'all join in and let's talk tomorrow. In the meantime, be safe. Remember the Cash App. Remember Zelle. Remember to share the program most importantly, because we have to get the information out there. Education is supposed to change attitude, and unless we continue to share information to get people educated on these issues, then attitudes will not change. Good. Y'all have a good one. Much love. Before I go, I'm going to the I intend to go to the Practical Instruction Center today, the PIC, and hand over some of those kits I spoke about. I did make a commitment to 5 or 6 students there last week when I visited. And so today I'm going to make the effort to go and deliver the stuff that I have, that I made those commitments over to them. Hopefully I'll be able to get photographs. And then there are those persons who have asked for information in relation to what is needed for the masonry students. I'm going to try to get that kind of information also when I get there, so that we can share that and we can continue to empower our young people. Look out, the Christmas market is being planned. It's going to happen definitely on the 20th of December. I'm seeing it happening from mid-afternoon into the night because it's going to be a Friday. Put together your exhibits, put together your products and services and so on, and let's have a grand Christmas market. We have to support and promote our small businesses and innovators. Have a good one, like I said. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow.